Welcome everyone to the Winning Together podcast. You've got Shay, the Aloha Aslet, and with me today, I've got the Rad+Attitude Rae, and we're gonna break open. We're going to go there with you. We're gonna show you how to transform tragedy into triumph, sorrow and suffering into a story that inspires hope and positive action. We want to really give you some of the treasure that we're finding in doing our recovery and sharing that with other people. So tell me, Rad+Attitude Raditude. Why is that your mantra right now? Why does that, when you think about a message you want to share, why does that come up? I love it, by the way. It's fantastic.
One thing that I've really been working on, especially over the past couple months, is my attitude. And one of the ways that I've been able to shift out of that anger and that bitchiness all the time is just being able to shift it into gratitude and then having hope to become a better person. So that's where that came from.
Okay, but you're a really capable person. You're smart. You're talented. You're gifted. Why is hope and feeling good, why does it feel so slippery to you, or has in the past anyway?
I think because when you're in the depths and at your lows, and even when you shift out of those depths and out of that rock bottom to working on yourself, it's really hard to take a step back and see that you're doing anything, because you still feel really chaotic and out of control, and it doesn't feel you're getting anywhere, and messing up is a big part of recovering, and that's been a huge part of my story, and it happens a lot, and it's really hard to take a step back and recognize, okay, I've done this work, I've done a lot of work, I'm talking like a different person, I don't if I look back and compare the person that's sitting here right now today to me at 19 when I first stepped into recovery, they're two completely different people.
Yeah, now you're mid-20s, so that's kind of it feels like a lifetime, doesn't it?
Right.
Or two?
Yeah, it feels.
How many lifetimes have you lived, by the way? You know what I mean by that? How many chapters have there been in the story?
Oh, so many.
Yeah.
I always say all the time, I feel I have a really old soul, and I feel I am the mind of an 80-year-old in a 25-year-old's body.
I love it. What's the chapter right now called? And what was the chapter at 19 called? I know I'm putting you in the spot to kind of think of how would you describe those times in your life when we're comparing and contrasting?
The chapter at 19, the first thing that comes to my head is chaos. And but what I mean by that is I was chaotic in everything I did. With my using, when I went into treatment the first time, I was chaotic with all the people around me, just drama, so much drama, passionate drama. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, but it was raw. It was you let it overtake, and you become that person who could generate that feeling in that powerful way.
Yeah, and it was messy, and people did not want to be around me all the time, and it was hard going into treatment and getting sober for the first time, and I'm oh, I'm sober, everybody's gonna want to be around me now, and I'm still super chaotic, and everybody's yeah, no, stay away. So that's what I would compare that to. And now,
there's been very few times in your life where people didn't want to be around you, huh?
Yeah, I've always
that's important to you too, huh?
Yeah, it's very important for me to have people to want to be around me. And it's not necessarily an acceptance thing, but
right.
I thrive off of connecting. It
doesn't make sense
people
when they don't want to be around you. That's what we can't figure out.
Yeah,
for real.
And maybe it's my Aquarius energy. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I really value people wanting to be around me.
That's true.
I really value connecting with other people who I choose. Yeah.
But you've got this capacity too, and I think from kind of the part of, you know, the chapters that were painful and really trying, you like the way they found that people that are popular. So we'll take high school because that's a great, like, you know, case study, right? But people that are popular in high school, they get along with a lot of different types of people, and I know you can get along with all types of people from everywhere.
Yeah, that's been my experience. Like, I didn't think, like, I remember, like, actually, like, going into junior high and, like, going into high school, and I remember, like, I was starting in a new school, like, my family moved around all the time. I'm like, I'm so scared that, like, I'm not going to be able to, like, make friends, and, like, nobody's going to want to hang out with me, and, like, it ended up, like, being, like, the complete opposite, which is weird because, like, it was not long after that like, my career as a drug addict began, and so... And people still wanted to, like, be around me, you know? And it's kind of always been that way. And I remember, like, another moment, like, when I started hair school when I was 17 and being, like, really worried about, like, making friends, like, there and, like, shifting from that, like, high school part of my life to, like, okay, like, going into the adult world. And again, like, I just made friends, like, super easy. And it always like kind of took me by surprise. Like, I guess at that time I didn't see myself like as a super likable person. I was like super depressed and, you know, just like trying to do anything I could to avoid like what I was feeling internally. So it kind of like made me amazed to see that like other people still wanted to be around me. Like when inside I was like, ugh, you know.
Looking back with some perspective, what were you feeling? Like, how did you view yourself?
I really like viewed myself as unlovable, and I think that has a lot to do with just like my relationship with like my parents at that point in time. And like, you know, me and my mom didn't really get along very well. Me and my dad didn't really get along very well. And, I'm an only child, and that's where like all my worth came from when I was younger. So like when that like stopped abruptly, it kind of like made me like feel like unlovable and like just like nobody really cared like what happened to me.
It's the people that matter,
you know.
And one thing when we were talking about it is, you know, part of your experience was growing up as a teenager is workaholic dad, alcoholic mom. And anybody who's listening, if you like have a parent or parents that are workaholics, it is the same as alcoholic. So part of, I think, if you're listening to this is, you know, letting other people know around you that are important to you that workaholism is no better than alcoholism. So it doesn't matter if they come from some kind of background where, you know, they don't drink alcohol, but think workaholic is okay. It's not okay.
Right. And, you know, like, looking back now, I can, like, see and recognize, like, all the stuff that, like, my parents were dealing with, like, at a super young age with me.
Yeah. Because if your mom's alcoholic, she didn't like herself, so she can't like you. She
right.
didn't
like,
have to give.
And just, like, kind of, like, with the trauma that I've experienced, like, in my life, like, looking back at that and, like, thinking, okay, like, I know for a fact that I am not the only one that experiences trauma and that everybody experiences trauma. What were my parents dealing with, you know?
That's huge.
And
that's next level compassion for you.
Yeah, it was hard for me to get there. I was like really resentful towards my mom and dad for a long time, and it would shift back and forth from me being resentful towards my dad and like getting along with my mom, or like me being resentful towards my mom and getting along with my dad. And I'm really just at this place now where like I've been able to take a step back and like it's kind of like a spiritual experience every time I do this. Like take a step back and like perspective is key. And I try and just look at like the grand scheme of things. And like, I think about, okay, like what if I would have had a kid at like my parents' age when they had me, you know, like my kid would like not be in my custody. That's for sure with the choices that I've made. And I just kind of realized one thing that I like firmly believe is that, and I've heard it quite a bit, is people do the best they can with what they have, like in the moment. And I really do believe that my parents did the best that they could. Because now, like today, they both show up for me completely different.
Oh, right.
You know?
How How much of that do you think has to do with the way you're showing up for you?
I think that has a big piece. That's a big piece of it. I think that my pattern when I started using drugs and when I was younger was like kind of just like to withdraw and do my own thing because I didn't have any siblings and like nobody to tell me what to do, and my parents were like doing their own thing anyway. And so I kind of just realized that I could like get away with like whatever I wanted, you know, and I stopped showing up for myself in school. I stopped like...
Was school easy for you?
Yeah, at first it was until I stopped caring about it,
Sure.
You know? And I just stopped like showing up and doing the things that like I was like supposed to do, that I knew I was supposed to do because like I knew that I could get away with it. And
It's
then
really
like
exciting at that time of your life too.
yeah, and that like eventually like just turned into me like completely ghosting my family whatsoever. And like, I mean, I really don't think, I'm sure they kind of had an idea, but like they really didn't know like the extent of my addiction until like I was already like hooked on the needle and like ready to go to treatment. And it had already been going on for 5 years at that point. So I think them seeing like some willingness in myself to like do the work and like show up for myself, especially since I've shifted out of that. You know, a lot of like addicts in recovery and people that go to treatment get really comfortable in treatment and end up like going in and out a lot. And that's been my story. Like residential treatment became like my safe haven from the streets where I didn't have to deal with any reality. I was fed 3 meals a day. I'm getting therapy, so like, you know, I'm feeling like better about myself, and I just didn't have to like deal with any external things. And what I've noticed since I've like shifted over this past year, I kind of made a commitment to myself that like I wouldn't go back into residential treatment unless it was absolutely necessary, and that I would try to just do sober living and outpatient, so I could start applying myself in the real world.
It was a big deal to put it like to raise the bar on yourself, but it also probably felt like coming home natural because you having high expectation of yourself has probably always been part of your like the way you see yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think me like recognizing that and like setting that boundary with myself, because I've heard it like from like my parents, from my friends, you know, like stop, like what else are you going to learn from like going to treatment, you know? And I think when I finally like took a step back and was like, okay, I'm setting this boundary with myself. Like I have reached the cap of like work that I can do in a residential treatment. It's time for like the rubber to hit the road. I've kind of been able to show up for myself differently. And like, it hasn't been like a perfect journey by any means. And there's been like slip-ups
Whatever that
on
even
the
means,
way.
right?
Yeah. There's been a few slip-ups on the way, but like, I think the way that I've handled the situations, and like relapse or like whatever it may be, has made all the difference in like my family's and other people's patience with me, and like willingness to like show up for me on their end, because like I've exhausted people to the point like where they can't like, I'm sure they want to help me, but they can't like do it anymore. It's got to be exhausting seeing somebody you love like go through this, you know?
I've observed, so you have this real gift and talent that people want to be around you. And when you're in a room, like, you know, like your presence is like, it matters. It like elevates the room. But if you have I've learned, if you have the gift to elevate a room, you have the gift to like bring it way down too.
Yeah.
And that can be really burdensome with people who have long-term relationships with you.
Yeah. And I know for a fact that the key component, that right there has been a big stress on like my relationship with my best friend, because she's talked to me about it before, you know? And
yeah, like when you're the best, you're the best. But when you're not, bring in the black hole.
Right, and other people like feed off of that, you know? And like that's not really like the person that like I want to be, you know? I'm a really big like believer in like the law of attraction.
You're a giver, not a taker, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm a really big believer of like the law of attraction, and like, you can speak things into existence, and like what you like put out, like you get from the world.
Yep.
And it's a really hard thing to be mindful of all the time, but I don't want to be that person that's like spreading that toxicity all the time. I'm tired.
It goes both ways.
Yeah. It comes right back to me, and like on top of it, I'm tired of it because that was like me. That was me all my life using, you know, like just super dramatic, super toxic. That was me like my first probably 3 or 4 years into trying to get sober. I mean, it got easier, or it like the toxicity levels like dropped like as I continued to try recovery over and over again, but like it was
So
still
it wasn't
pretty
like level
bad.
5 nuclear waste, it was just like level 3 nuclear waste.
Yeah.
It was still nuclear waste.
Yeah.
Right? Hey, that's big for you to like go there. Thank you.
And like in my mind, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like not toxic at all because I'm like way less toxic than I was like years ago, you know?
Like you guys don't even know. And that's true. They don't even know.
And I think that's been a big thing for me too, to realize is that like, okay, this is like not like I get to this point and I'm done kind of thing. Like I've got to keep doing this continuously if I want to maintain relationships with the people that I care about. And like I've noticed that I've had multiple people in my life have to set, from like my dad to like my best friend to like my other best friend and her kids who I took care of. I've had to have them set boundaries with me, like, hey, until you like stop doing this and like want to,
I bet that stung.
add something to the relationship, I can't do it anymore. And it is hard, but one thing that I've kind of noticed as a common theme with like each time this has happened in my life is that like on my end, I completely understand like where it's coming from, you know? And I know that these people love and care about me. And that ends up being like big motivator for me to like change and try and do things differently. It's definitely not like all my motivation, but it also like a big part that it has motivated me is like kind of like, okay, taking away like my main like support and emotional connection and like my go-to, and then like leaving me with myself to rely on that and like to kind of look inward and actually like deal with shit instead of just putting it off. And
yeah, the level of trusting that you're having of you and liking to be around yourself is pretty, it's Ratitude. I mean, it's really rad.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've noticed this probably from October until now on how much I really, and it's been kind of gradual since October until now, how much I really enjoy like being by myself. And like
Before, was it you always had to be around somebody always had to be part
yeah,
of it?
and not like, or I have to like be doing something or like going to like in-person meetings or like doing like what, like going to like whatever events or like whatever social gatherings my friends were doing. And I really don't mind like just like spending like time by myself. I think it's given me like this like special time to like just like kind of sit and like get a little deeper understanding of like myself and like why I am doing the things that I do, why I react the way that I react to certain things. I mean, especially since I've been here at IM, I've really been able to like look and like kind of go like, it's like almost each week I go a layer deeper.
Yep.
On like why I am in this cycle that I'm in. And it's,
the level of surrender I've seen you practice has been noticeable week over week. I would agree with that.
and it's crazy to me because like I'm typically a super like resistant person. And, you know, I think a lot of this has to do with, you know, I'm a super spiritual person, not religious, but like my connection and my prayer with like God. And that's like a God of my own understanding. But I think it's been or made a huge difference in like how I show up for myself and like the patience that I have each day. Because like,
I was asking you if patience has been something you really prize now or you really value.
And yeah, it definitely is. And it's when I pray, I'm not like praying for myself. I'm praying to become like the best version of myself so I can be of service.
Doesn't that make such a big difference?
Yeah, it does. And
I found the same thing.
And then if I'm like struggling with resentment or I'm upset towards like a situation or something, I've been praying for that like person or like situation. Not all of them, but the ones that matter, like I will, and like that becomes part of my prayer routine.
I love that.
Every night. And it just kind of brings a different like level of like acceptance.
You bet. Know? And personal power. Like, and it stays with you. One thing that I want to circle back to, and this is really, especially for anybody who's been in a relationship with somebody of significance for an extended period of time. So think, parents, siblings, maybe a monogamous relationship or a friendship. And, think about the longest, the ones that have had the biggest duration or have the most profound impact on your life. When you choose to become a different person or show up as a version of yourself that is is more giving, more valuable, more present, more willing, more less abrasive, more workable, a little bit easier to be around, a little bit easier to win with. The person that you can draw out of that friendship or that relationship or that parent is much different. So people who feel like my parents are stuck, okay, that may be so. But if you're willing to change and like really go there, like you have decided to go there, you start becoming a different person. And if the law of attraction is what it is, since you're being a different person, you attract a different person out of that person. And you can create space and leadership to lead people you care about to a new place and a new way of being and still like have that same relationship. So I've noticed, I'm just really proud of you to create a new like version of a relationship with people that are important instead of just like, okay, it's done. We so often think we have to like cut it off and it's done and start somewhere new as like our better selves. But you can draw out that different version of them by being that different version of you.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I kind of like hadn't thought about it that way before, but that's really crazy because the first like example that popped into my head is my relationship with my mother, and that there had been many a times where I'd been like, that's it, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore, and this is how it has to be. And like really all it took on my end is like a little bit of willingness and patience and to show up like how I would want her to show up for me. And like honestly, exactly. If I'm being like completely honest, she is kind of better at like patience with me than I am towards her right now, because I kind of slipped backwards a little bit over the holidays. And that was like a big moment, realizing, my mom's patience with me and like her unconditional love. And I noticed like I actually like stopped myself multiple times, like having an attitude or being rude and like being mean to her and be like, I'm sorry, like I shouldn't be saying this to you. Like that's not your fault.
That's beautiful.
And it's crazy because I never thought like that would be like possible. And I don't want to take like any of like her credit for her personal growth, but I do think that like me, like, because as a family, like looking back when my parents were still together and like my mom's side of the family, my dad's side of the family, like nobody would like really know like that this kind of work like is out there for you to do on yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think that like me like stepping into this new world of like personal growth and like therapy and stuff kind of opened my mom's eyes to like some of her own personal growth and stuff that she wanted to do for herself to bring herself peace in life. And I see that in her a lot lately. It makes me happy.
When you had to go to a place where you're the only one that was willing to give you hope, and now to see you spark that in somebody you really care about, that's really joyful. That's really rad. Hat tip to you for like being willing, because I think for a lot of your life it was like people had to come to me, And for you, like, no, I'll go meet you where you're at, and to get what you really want, to spark some joy in somebody you care about. I mean, that's what's radder than that.
Right. It took a really long time for me. I felt bad for the son that I showed up as, and I still do show up that way for my parents sometimes. You know,
it's a process, right? It's a practice,
right? And I feel bad, and and that kind of helps me today because I'm not really big on going and doing family things, and because it stresses me out, and I don't want to answer questions.
It hasn't been a source of pleasure either. It's been a source of pain.
And then just kind of going and trying to create a new memory around that kind of stuff has been super fulfilling for me. I mean, my birthday was just recently. I was on Monday. Sorry, I don't know why I blanked on that. I turned 25, and I've had a lot of birthdays. I've had a lot of partying birthdays, and this year was probably the most wholesome and fulfilling birthday that I've ever had.
How'd that feel?
It was so good. And I had two kind of separate celebrations. I did one with my friends, whom are mostly in recovery now at this point in my life. And most of them have multiple years of sobriety, and they all got together and went out to dinner with me, and I felt so loved, and it was incredible. Just super grateful, that people love me enough to show up for me like that, and that especially even after I have 30 days sober today. So 30 days ago I was a mess, and these people are still showing up for me,
So I want to tie this in. I want to loop this in. And I want to go back to kind of also when you talk about attracting and manifesting and being different. So this Christmas 2020. So overall, I get the impression that 2020 was actually a great year for you.
It was. I've been saying that all year. 2020 was
huge,
really good for me. Yeah.
Christmas 2020, lowest point of the year, maybe even.
Definitely.
Do you feel like we need those experiences to then, I don't know if it's either know that we really don't want that anymore and to choose the good, or how are you making, that low point of the holidays over Christmas something that now serves you, instead of just a shame thing?
That's a good question. My birthday's exactly a month after Christmas, and I sat in a lot of shame over the holidays this year. And me going and creating this new experience, with my mom, with my friends. I talked to my dad, talking to my family, kind of made me realize that's how I want my holidays and my special occasions to be moving forward, and I wish that it wouldn't have taken me dropping the ball on Christmas this year to help me
and you mean
fully realize that, completely burn some bridges, hurt people, and let people down. I really do wish that it wouldn't have taken that for me to realize how I want to show up for others and how I like to have others show up for myself. But it really did change the perspective of the type of family member and friend that I want to be.
It's hard to think of how to get motivated the way you've been motivated the last few weeks, because I've noticed I'll see a flash of that kind of resistant person or that rebellious person or that person ooh, I'm gonna go get stuck because that's easy, but it's just a flash. And the way that the motivation I've seen come from you in just the month of January has been profound. And the way you didn't get stuck in the shame, and the way you turned that I was a real, just not a good person to the people I care about, to no, I actually am a really good person and I will show up that way. You've been moving in that direction super fast.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think.
Well, the good thing you have is it's not just me saying it, because you've also been getting the noticing from other areas of your life.
Right. I really have. And it's been a super like validating experience, like to see that like, okay, when I do show up this way, this is the kind of response that I get from other people. It doesn't even matter if like these people know me super well, you know? And I think that like the motivation is coming from like, okay, if I have these people that have super firm boundaries with me in certain aspects of my life right now that I love and care about dearly with all my heart. And I have myself that like I need to show up and take care of, that right now I can say that I really love and care about myself with all my heart.
That's true.
And the only way that I can make an amends to myself and to the people that I have hurt is by moving forward and becoming the best person that I can be and like show them something different. And if I don't do that, like there's no other way.
How are you becoming a person that's hard to replace in your relationships?
Like how it's hard to replace me as a friend or like.
Exactly. So, especially as I've observed people that are in long-term monogamous relationships, that this staleness can creep in really profoundly. And one of the ways that I've addressed that, because I will have a relationship that's alive and passionate and loving and sexy and fun. And I've learned that means that she can go whenever she wants. And so it's on me to become somebody who's really hard to replace. So how are you becoming a person who's really hard to replace as a friend, as a son, as a peer, as a partner?
Yeah, that is very true. If whatever the relationship may be, like the other person can walk away from that at any time. And I show up like with my whole heart and a level of loyalty that like I would expect others to show up for me as, and I give all that I can. And like now that I'm sitting here sober and like doing work on myself, I'm able to give others more than I have before, because I still have a level of like love and loyalty, and like I will still give all that I can give, even if I'm in like an active addiction that's just a lot
the core value
smaller.
Sure.
When I'm like using, but like as I'm sober, I gain these tools that make me able to show up for myself and create a certain amount of stability in my life, that like when things happen, because it's been so crazy, because like January has been also a month full of trauma for me this year too. Wow. I've had a couple deaths, and some loss, and it's been pretty crazy, but I've like created enough of stability like in my life to be able to like rely on that stability when
the way you're carrying it in your body is so different, I think, than you have in the past. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy, because like I'm experiencing a lot of grief and like external stuff that's happening right now, but I do also have a lot of internal stability to rely on that's allowing me to know that I'm okay. And like, whereas like if I'm in active addiction or like not doing work on myself or like whatever, like something like this happens and I'm just like off the wall, whether it's mentally, emotionally, physically, on drugs, like whatever it may be, I've gone off the deep end and I can't show up for others that are in my life. And I think with the stability that I'm starting to create, even when things like this hit, I'm still able to show up for other things that I need to. And it's the best that I can, whether it be like talking on the phone or like whatever, I do have to be mindful about like my stress levels and stuff.
Yeah.
But I notice a lot of more flexibility with like and mental capacity to just like be present for certain things. You're
so proud of yourself for that. That's great work.
Yeah, I really am. It's hard because like my brain sometimes tells me, like, okay, like don't be proud of yourself because like you still got a long way to go, but like I really do see a tremendous amount of change in myself. And like, that's where that hope comes in, because like, I don't think I've ever like seen a future for myself at all before until 2020. And
Wow.
over that year, I kind of just made a commitment that like, I'm not like gonna give up, like no matter what happens at this point, you know?
Something I have to point out to any listeners is there's a part of you that you can see through that is just totally unbreakable. And I really like love that you want to like give that in a way that people can lean on it, and it's not like draining you, but it's a way you can generate energy with other people. So I want to commend you for like noticing that part of you that you can't, like, you must honor, you must not let die, because then it would all be lost. And the way you've like fed that, you've got this part of you that it does not matter what comes your way, you will like move through it, period.
Yeah, it's so weird because like I have like, there's been so many things that have happened in my life and I don't like know like where this came from, that I'm just like, oh, okay, like that happened, like gonna continue to try and move on, you know, even, you know, in sobriety and addiction, and as a child. You should have given
up when you were 13. You should have given up when you were 18. You should have given up when you were 19. You should have given up when you were 22. Should have given up when you were 24, but you didn't. And so you can't give up now.
Right. And like when those things happen, like, you know, like I've noticed, especially like if I experience like a trauma or something with like somebody else or like a crazy event, like I'm usually the one that's like trying to like be positive about it, you know, and trying to keep it light, because I don't know, it's just like a part of my personality.
It's one of your gifts and talents to give.
And I know like my Reiki lady told me that I have like this like white energy that like surrounds me, that like protects me.
I can see that.
And I am like, that's that other piece of me that like I'm aware of, you know, that like I do have that to give to other people, and it's selfish for me to like just keep that all to myself all the time.
Well, it becomes maladaptive. If you don't give it, it's going to go inside and start like, well, it already has. You've already experienced like when you put it inside, it becomes this really ugly, messy thing.
Right.
So bring me home. What's the final, like, what does someone listening need to do or stop doing or seek out or open up to allow some Raditude into their experience? Because by the way, if you just sit there and say Raditude like 5 times, you feel better. I love that.
I think like for me, I mean, it's a hard topic to like tiptoe around, but like finding some sort of like spiritual connection, and like that doesn't have to be God. I use God for like lack of a better term of like the universe. Like God is just something that's so much bigger than me, that like I use God because I can't comprehend it. I think making that connection with a power greater than yourself, and then like, and that power greater than yourself can like even be like your higher self. You know, I believe that me and God are one, you know, and that's my spiritual goal, is to become one with God. And like meditating or praying and like sitting in a place of reflection and like asking what ways you can show up to like be your best self. And like if you're struggling like with like having patience, or I will pray for patience and compassion for other people, but I will also pray for patience and compassion for myself.
Right.
And it's not in a selfish way, you know, it's so I can like show up and like be.
It's to give. It's to become a person of value. Yeah.
And and you have to be consistent with it, and you have to like, and it has to be something that you can understand and believe in, because really it is like getting quiet, like with yourself, you know?
Exactly what it is.
And it's kind of just like a little bit of an inventory, and like just being honest with yourself with like what you need, to become the person that you want to be and the person that you want to show up as. And when you do that every day, it brings to the forefront of your mind the things that you need to be working on. And like
your inner wisdom will never lie.
Right.
The things that come up, as long as you don't judge them or like try and like make them wrong or right, like whatever comes up, it's exactly what it's supposed to be.
Right. Trust your intuition, because your head will tell you different a lot of times. And I have to like consciously combat that. And I guess it comes back to like mindfulness and spirituality, which are two of my biggest values. And Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes a lot to get there. You know, it's a practice. But the key thing about mindfulness is observing without judgment.
It is.
So if you slip up and like you forget to pray or you forget to be mindful, like it is what it is. Okay, try again, you know?
Wow, that capacity of awareness and patience and love you are giving to yourself is rad. Good job.
Thanks.
Way to practice it.
Thank you.
Everyone, you know, we all have recovery that we're going through, and if it's not your specific thing, someone around you is. Be a rad person. Have a just a better attitude than you did yesterday, and go give your gifts and talents to people that matter in your life, and show up. It feels good, and it feels good to feel good.
Right. Like you show up like. You show up selflessly, and like there's like kind of this selfish piece for it, because you get like this fulfilling like feeling inside of you, like when you're able to show up and like help somebody else, that really drives you to keep going.
It really does. It's the most selfish thing I can do is be selfless, is give you my gifts and talents like all the way. The universe always brings back something way better than I even thought or was hoping for.
Right.
Okay. I'm gonna ask you one more crazy question.
Okay.
Before we started talking about like going, like where would you like to go like visit the next place? And you said Hawaii. What's a step you can take to actually get closer to going and visiting Hawaii within the next month?
Within the next month?
Yeah. What's something you can do that like would make that like impossible thing possible?
I actually like started thinking about this and like looking at flights a little bit. It's actually pretty cheap to fly to Hawaii right now.
It is.
And I have a job that I'm super grateful for, that I make decent money at. And I think I'm gonna just start putting away some money.
So would you go the spring, the summer, and the fall?
It would probably be next year. Probably winter next year. You know, so I have enough money to do everything that I want to do.
Yeah, for sure. Love it. It's important to dream. Thank you for being here, the Ratitude, and bringing your great energy and hope and love. This is sponsored, the Winning Together podcast. It's all about finding ways to win together, because nothing important or valuable in your life happens on your own or by yourself or when you're stuck and doing it and pushing everyone away. It happens when you win together. Sponsored by I Am Recovery. They're a great program that can help you find the right program if they're not the right fit. IamRTC.com or 801-407-9998.
Can I just say something
Please.
about I Am Recovery really quick? That I've been to a lot of different programs, and this program offers something completely different than anything that I've experienced before. And I don't really say that too often. I'm super grateful for this place. And
what's the difference? What's the thing that's worked for you? Added value.
The groups, the life coaching has been something that's been super helpful for me. And I don't, all the people that work here kind of are on the same mindset about like recovery. And it's really like doing this together, like winning together. And everybody kind of has like the same like mindset and outlook. I don't know. It's like everybody's on the same page, and it's helped me be able to go like deeper with myself,
Oh, that's rad.
Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I'm Recovery decided, like one of their aspects of their business model is they have coaching as part of the, program process. And I'm glad to hear that experience has been positive and productive and valuable for you.
Yeah, the coaching with the therapy and like working with my sponsor, it's just been like the perfect combination for me to stay motivated.
Yeah, yeah. I think, going to what you said as far as the attitude too, so I do coaching here at I'm Recovery as well. And one thing that I just know I've got group to teach next week, and that means this week I got to do my work because I'm like, I love that I get to be accountable because it helps me become a better person. Like you're saying, if I'm there and I show up and I can say like, let's do the thing because I do the thing and we're going to do it together, then it just makes my life better.
Right. And like, I think that like you show up like that. A lot of other recovery coaches show up like that. The like counselors show up like that, you know, and it kind of creates this space where it's kind of like impossible to like be resistant,
right?
You know,
very uncomfortable at the very least.
Yeah, and it's good. It's great,
and it feels really, really good to surrender and just go
right
and go big.
Absolutely,
great comment. Thanks for sharing that. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Great having you.
Thank you,
everyone. We promise to have a great day. Make the same promise to yourself. Cheers, everybody.